Okay, here's a video review of excuse me of this Jarvan player, FD73 Parker. Um, I want to start off with the masteries runes, just basic stuff first. Runes here look exceptionally standard and good for a Jarvan. Nothing wrong with that. Um, for the mastery tree, I don't really see anything significantly wrong. I will comment that I don't really like double-edged sword on people whose role in the late game is kind of more like of a tanky initiator. Um, both of these, in my opinion, are better. Feast is better because Jarvan has just such a bad level 1 through 4 clear anyway that having 20 extra health per camp, which basically equates to about 80 or 100 extra health during your first clear, I think that's important. And exposed weakness, I think, is also important because basically Jarvan's job is to lock down and have your carries pile damage onto them. And ultimately, your carries are going to be doing more damage than you. So to increase their damage, I think, is important. Um, Not a big deal, but that's really the only thing in this that I would see that's wrong. So I want to focus on this feedback right here. It says, I feel like I'm able to pick up a lot of free kills early, but struggle with trying to translate it into a hard lead. I understand I don't ward as much as I should, and I have problems with building items. Sometimes I feel like I need to be super tanky. Other times I feel I need the damage because the carries are behind. After 10 minutes, if I'm the one fed, I'm not sure at times whether to snowball. I want to talk about this here because I can talk about this without having to do live commentary. So basically, what to do with items, and ultimately with Jarvan, especially that tanky initiator type of champion, damage isn't your job. So building damage items mostly helps with the jungle matchup. So it helps in the 1v1 skirmishes you might get with the enemy jungler. It also helps a little bit with adding more burst to ganks. But building more damage by the late game just isn't your job. It's not really what you should be doing, and I feel you can kind of lose a grip of your lead if you try and dive bomb the enemy team without being tanky enough to really back it up. That being said, Jarvan actually does have some decent assassination potential, but he would be assassinating one person. It's really hard to do that from the jungle because the itemization is just much harder to get. So I prefer like a tanky bruisery build. It looks like here this wasn't a very long game, so you really only built Warrior into Deadman's, which I think is you built Warrior into Frozen Heart into Deadman's. I think that's an acceptable build path. So unfortunately it's not long enough to see, but I would say with Jarvan, Warrior early is good because it helps you stay relevant in the jungle matchup. It helps you clear and it gives you more damage in a gank. But after going Warrior, I probably wouldn't do any other heavy damage investment items because they're just hard to get away with on him. Okay, so let's move into the game. I'll discuss like holding a lead, gaining a lead, and those things as the game shows up because the way to do that is very situational. Okay, so your team is doing this for you. I'm going to turn this off. Your team is doing this for you, which is warding this brush or this brush, and standing or warding in this brush. Basically, you need this entrance covered, and you need this entrance covered. I personally prefer getting this brush warded instead of this, but Lucian dropped his ward there, so that's fine. You have a safe protection against an invade with Blitzcrank especially. You really want to be on the lookout for that. I don't like just standing here, and if you do that in every game, you're probably doing something it's probably going to hurt you 1 in 5 or 1 in 6 or 1 in 7 games. So just be a little bit more proactive in your early game instead of just standing here. Okay, so that word was useless, which isn't actually true because you know that Blitzcrank isn't going to come and try and steal your buffs. That was a really healthy take here. Okay, I want to point out here while it's just clearing, your mana is super low, and I don't like investing so much mana into a clear. You're probably gonna have to start this one with smite. With an enemy Rengar, that's not a big deal. Yeah, you smited it to start. With an enemy Rengar, that's not a big deal because it's Rengar and he's kind of weak. Level 1 through 6, or levels 1 through 5, he's kind of weak. But try and be a little bit more conservative with your mana. Jarvan spells cost a ton, especially his Q, and it doesn't actually contribute to a lot of DPS. I often will Q like the Wraith Camp because there's 4 of them and it applies to all 4. But I don't know if I would queue every camp every time it's on cooldown. Okay, so talking about gaining a lead. Your teammate gained a lead for himself, and since you were on the top side of the map already while he was, in lane winning his lane, this is an okay option because so what he should do here if he really knew what he was doing, what I imagine went on, this is what I imagine went on. You're in his head stealing his farm, and he's pissed off about that because on his mind it's going to set him farther behind. What he doesn't realize is he's going to be able to back and get an extra item anyway. What you're doing is the correct call, I think, because it's going to force Graves to teleport or he's going to lose this wave. So you're denying Graves this wave of CS, or you're at least stealing his teleport. Cho'Gath should continue to back because he's super low and he's probably going to end up dying. He might not be a top lane, he might not be top lane main, so he probably doesn't realize that. I bet you Rengar's here in this brush. Oh, Rengar's way down there. Okay, but still, it's kind of risky at this 3.5 minute mark to be low in the top lane. And anyway, you did the right thing, which was get some lane dominance to deny Graves. And Cho'Gath is being the whiny, like, oh, don't take my farm, and so Cho'Gath misses the opportunity to back. Now he's low, and he's going to be losing this 1v1 now. But there's nothing you can do because his lane is pushed. So instead, you're just going to go farm, which is okay. You're here, and you need to kind of decide what's worth doing. So this lane is pushed, you can't really do anything. Because Cho'Gath has such ridiculous sustain, he's almost full health again. So this is a good lane for you to just kind of ignore. You're not going to actually get to this in time. You'll get here like 5 seconds before she does, if even that. So you have no reason to go mid either. And Lux just shoved out the lane to back. So here, killing Gromp, I would have just backed. It's not the best time to back because you only have, you have 760 gold, so that's like 2 longswords. Anyway, I think what you're about to do, which is wander around, is wasting time and denying your ability to create a lead. Because you just, yeah. So it looks like you're going to try and gank a pushed lane. Okay. I don't think that, so ultimately you've wasted about 50 seconds to kill this Scuttle Crab. I don't think it was worth it. What you did gain was you gained some ward coverage for your top lane, which is nice, but Rengar doesn't really gank pre-6 anyway, and Cho'Gath will be able to peel himself off of Rengar. So I feel like you're just wasting time. Now you're farming because you can. You should definitely back after taking wolves here. Okay, you took wolves. There's no reason to come across and take wraiths. You've definitely got enough money to do a meaningful back. You have plenty of money. What you should do is go back and buy 2 longswords and boots, probably, because your Jarvan boots really help you get around the map, and overall I just like the 2 longswords boots on Jarvan. I don't think you needed to farm this, because you go back and then you come out and it'll be up for you to farm on your way back into the map. And Wraith is a really common place to start as you kind of analyze the map and decide where it's best to go. So I just don't like coming all the way across the lane to farm and then back, and then you have to come back up to lane again. So try and time your backs more strategically. When there's nothing on one half of the map, it's usually a good time to back, unless you're on a small enough gold pile, but 1.1k is definitely enough gold. Okay, again, as you're clearing your camps, you need to look around the map. What's your next move? Now you're sitting on like 1200 gold. your gold amount is getting pretty high, and this lane isn't really gankable. One of these is about to hit 6 very soon, and you don't really want to be there unless you know for sure Ari is going to have the level 6 advantage, and you don't really know that right now because Ari actually backed before Lux, and Ari's actually losing in CS as well. So I would say this is kind of just a stalemate for the next minute until they both get level 6 and kind of reestablish the lane presence around their ultimates. And you're low. You're not super low, but you're considerably low. And Lux, if she gets ult and lands a snare onto you, you're dead. She can 100% from you from this health. So I'm a strong advocate for backing at the right times. I think that you've passed 2 good opportunities to go back to base. Okay, it looks like you're ganking for no reason. Okay, so not including going to Gromp, well, including that. Going to Gromp, coming toward this, killing Scuttle, that wasted about 40 seconds of efficiency. And then coming here across the lane wasted about 20 seconds of efficiency. And then coming here to Lux and then pussyfooting around here, that was a lot of wasted time. As a jungler, your most important thing in the early game is to just be present. And you're not right now. You're spending a lot of time kind of doing nothing. I think it's Trick2G. He says you always have to be moving. You always have to be moving, and that's true. But you always have to be moving with a purpose. And he's just such a naturally talented player. He's always moving to the next objective that he wants, and you need to be deciding what that is. So you've got red buff, but you're not 6 and you don't have mana, and that's a really big problem at 8 minutes, especially not being 6. Now you're 6 because you soaked the cannon. Okay, you're 6 and you've ganked 0 lanes as Jarvan, and in my opinion that's a problem. The Jarvan and Rengar matchup really favors Jarvan pre-6 because he's got such long range to gank lanes, and Rengar can't do anything at all until he's 6. But once level 6, Rengar is going to control the map a lot more, so it should have been Jarvan's job to snowball the early game and hopefully get his lanes in a favorable position. Sorry about that. You didn't really do that. You farmed kind of inefficiently. You're 5 CS behind him, which isn't terrible, but he's farmed better and he's ganked, and you haven't really done anything. And part of that's your fault, part of that's your lanes have kind of been winning without help, but I would like to at least see more efficient movement. I would not consider this a lead at all. I mean, you're behind in CS and you're behind in kills, so at least for now you've failed to establish a lead. Okay, this is a good idea to gank. He's losing, and ganking the losing lane is actually a good thing. The one problem with ganking Graves is he can just dash out of your ult. So it's a good thing you didn't ult him there. You need to be using your ult on Lux pretty much as soon as your ult's on cooldown. Come gank Lux because she doesn't have a dash, and that's what your ult is designed to do, is trap people. Okay, so they won all of that without your help, but you didn't really even deserve this assist, but you got it because she already landed a nice flash charm. That was a really good hook onto Rengar. I'm gonna turn this down. It's probably pretty loud. Okay, I want to go back to you. So you went back. That was fine. I mean, there wasn't really any reason to continue that fight. Your team did, and it went in your favor. That's kind of cool. As you're in base, you should notice this skirmish down here is going to be very, very badly, or result very badly for your team, and they're probably going to transition this over to Dragon. So it looks like you're pathing up to Wraiths, which I think is the wrong decision because mid lane's up top. Lux is probably in base because she just, she just chased down Cho'Gath and didn't kill him. So you need to either come down here and provide defense on the tower, or what I would do is I would put a trinket here and then defend the tower because Thresh and Lucian are probably going to die from this gank. And instead you are going... Okay, you went the long way down to the lane. That was a good flash EQ. I don't really know about chasing him down. You got the kill. Okay. I'm not really going to comment a lot on that fight. It didn't go terribly. You did a decent job. Okay, right now is one of the most frustrating times for a jungler. Your only option is to farm, and in my opinion, I don't like that option. I like to be a little bit more aggressive than just farming my own camps. But it seems like your best option now because the map is entirely reset, basically. This whole skirmish down bottom, everyone died or everyone backed. And this lane is pushed, this lane is pushed, this lane is pushed. Lucian is kind of just wandering around. He's probably going to die from Rengar. Your really only good option here is to farm. So just kind of farm and wait out the next minute or so until something useful happens. This is the stupid idea. This is such a bad idea. Ugh, I'm face palming right now because Lucian should not have called this. The map reset. Everyone went to base at the same time, which means everyone came back to lanes at the same time. So Lucian died really, really early in that fight, so he came back to lane about 40 seconds before everybody. So he's trying to do something. He didn't have anything to do, so he thinks Dragon is the right option, but what he doesn't realize is you backed, actually you died, pretty much the same time Draven died. So if you can get here, Draven can get here like a second later, and that's probably what's going to happen. I think this 50-50 Dragon fight is a really stupid idea, because right now Dragon is basically a 6th member on the enemy team. And you don't have a teleport on your whole team. So you don't even have like the teleport play option to kind of make this favorable. I think this is really stupid. And it worked because, I don't know. I mean, I really don't like that play. I think it worked favorably for you. So here we're in that spot. You have a lead. What is your job now? Well, it depends on every game, really. I think the most important thing to do with a lead is basically just pressure the map. It's not necessarily pressure lanes, but it's pressure the map. So you should be living in Rengar's jungle right now. With this armor here, he's not going to be able to 100% you. So I mean, he's been farming like crazy, so he's actually got to level up on you. But I still think that it's going to swing favorably for you. And anyway, you've got the EQ mobility to really get out of his jungle quickly without really... So what I would do is get deep vision in their jungle, buy some pinks, use your trinkets in their jungle, use your pinks to like scout entrances and exits to the jungle, and just pressure the map. You can gank from here to top just as fast as you can gank from Krugs to top, but if you're... so I think that counter jungling is kind of your best bet to press the lead here, because you did establish a lead more because of the enemy's mistakes than of your own like really good map play. Capitalizing on mistakes is a good thing, so I'm not really criticizing, but I am saying you need to press the map. And right now, all you've done in the past literally 1 minute with this lead that you have, because if you look at the gold, I mean, you actually don't have a whole ton of gold because your camp score is really low. But you are strong. You're definitely a strong Jarvan. You're at that nice level 9 spot that Jarvan really likes. All you've done is cleared this so far. And bot lane was in base. What I would have done was cleared this and been ready to kind of meet Draven and Blitz with your bot Kling at... Anyway, try and decide where you're going to be, and you need to move your gold, you need to move your power around to where the plays should be happening. This is kind of a useless spot for you to be in. I can't tell who was... I think you were pinging that, like, help me ping, because I think you wanted to, like, catch Lux out. But you need to ask yourself, why does Lux want to leave her lane? Why would she come down here? this lane is pushed, so she's not going to make a roam down bot. If anything, Lux is going to roam up top to kill Cho'Gath. I don't know why we're doing that. Okay, you should see Rengar up top. He's in your view. So you need to use this opportunity to get deep vision in his camp. You don't need to follow that. That was kind of risky. Your E gives you vision, so you could have just used that to scout the camp, and if it was there, then you could have followed it. The spectator client doesn't give me knowledge of when this buff spawns, but you should be able to hold tab and see. And you've literally 2 minutes now. 2 minutes of... You were at 12 minutes, you hit level 9. It's now 14:30, and all you've done since level 9 is cleared Scuttle Crab. This is not the correct way to counter jungle. It's going to definitely cost you a death. Yeah, so that's not how you press a lead. I mean, obviously you made a mistake there, and making mistakes is not how you press leads, but in general, all of this was up for most of that time. Okay, so because of all that stuff that just happened, whatever lead that your team had is now basically negated. And actually, the gold's been really even this whole time because their lanes are farming better. She's not going to stay. Okay, you have vision of that. This is you now spent the last 40 seconds doing nothing. So you cleared Gromp. Ever since Gromp, all you've done is place one ward, and so that efficiency is why whatever leads you're gaining are not being translated, because I would say 40% of the time you're not actually doing anything. Like, you're not farming, you're not moving around the map, you're not warding, you're just waiting for something, and that's not what people with leads do. That was a good dive. Now you have this red buff. It should be free. I'm not a huge fan of this dragon call either, because you know where 0 people on the map are, and they might all just come out and destroy you. It's not a bad idea just because Cho'Gath was down there, but you're kind of going for these like really risky neutral dragons rather than taking dragon off of like an actual advantage. Rengar is still pushing top, so you should take that turret. Okay, that was actually an okay play. There's not much to say about what happened. I think you guys should have killed Draven and left sooner, because Rengar is just Rengar, and you just kind of always need to be aware of that. But learning how to play against Rengar is a whole different category of jungling, because not every game has a Rengar. Okay, so hopefully what I see in the next minute, you should obviously take your whatever these are called, raptors. You should take your raptor camp because it's there. That's obvious, but what I want to see in the next minute, put this pink somewhere. Actually, you have a pink on the map. Looks like this is probably your pink for dragon. So just, does it tell me? No. Anyway, take this camp and then get something set up so that your team can fight around here, because, well, actually, Lishan, this is really, really, really late for him to not yet have black cleaver, but ideally he should have his cleaver already. So anyway, let me change everything now. Now, for the next minute or two, you need to do nothing. You need to farm and play defensively with defensive vision until he actually gets an item. He should be close. Yeah, he needs about 700 gold for it. So that's about 2 minutes, and so just keep that in mind. Look at you as the jungle initiator. You need to initiate when your team can actually do the right damage, and that's again what I was saying earlier. It's your team's job to do the damage. It's your job to initiate and live long enough to be able to do something after you win the fight. And so don't initiate when your team doesn't have damage. And right now he's kind of at like this kind of awkward, not a lot of damage because Yomu's now doesn't do that much because the natural armor that people get as they get past level 9 is actually significant. Anyway, I just would say his damage is low, so you should just kind of sit around and wait. So maybe farm these 2 camps back, get another ward, or just get something useful. Cho'Gath is top, so getting some... Yeah, this is risky. He can kill you. That was Lucian's fault. Lucian had no business being this deep, especially when you were literally giving him vision of Rengar. So that was Lucian's fault. Nothing he could have done. Cho'Gath was caught. What Cho'Gath should not... So this split push... Anyway, he's split pushing wrong. He's split pushing wrong. It kind of helps to, like what I said earlier when you were sitting here about to farm your wraiths was like, like you need to wait the next 2 minutes for Lucian to get his item. I think you should probably just type that in the chat. Like, hey guys, let's wait for Lucian to get cleaver, and then let's make a 5v5 mid. Right now, Rengar's doing his job extremely well, which is spread out the map, continue to get huge, and, just prevent your team from grouping. Yeah, this Rengar's pretty good. Okay, I'm not sure what you're doing, but right now they've got 2 mid, including their ADC. No, their ADC's dead. Oh, Graves. They've got him and Graves mid. I bet you they're going to try and push mid. They're not going to get to tower, though, so you should just probably farm a camp. You've got nothing better to do. Their team has more people alive on the map, so you can't do anything crazy. So this is what I could just call defensively farm, and that's kind of what your next object should be. So defensively farm your blue is probably a good idea. Okay, good. You're backing, which is what you should do here. There's no reason for you guys to do dragon here. Cho'Gath is top. You want to enable his split push. Don't do that by forcing an objective. Do that by teasing an objective, but don't commit to dragon, because I guarantee you what's going to happen now. Rengar's going to come out, blow someone up. Now it's a 3v4 or 4v4 at best, but they have way more gold than you guys do. So you don't need to. This isn't you. You're here doing what you should do. Thresh is being retarded, and it's annoying. But overall, I think you guys are way, way, way too eager at these neutral dragons. When Graves is here, he can come and make it a 5v5. And that's what happens when you go for neutral dragons. It wasn't even a neutral dragon, it was an unfavorable dragon. And because he's Cho'Gath, he's not exactly a split pusher. I think Cho'Gath would rather group than split push. So you guys, I guess we're lucky here because Graves teleported super, super late. I guess that's honestly a fair trade, but only because their team played it wrong. That's cute. I think your build path here is fine. Okay, I think you guys are playing this fine. Yeah, I'm watching quietly because I think you guys are doing this fine. This was a good time to group. Basically, with Jarvan, Cho'Gath, Lucian, like, the more grouping your team does, the better. I don't like this idea, mostly because you just didn't communicate to your team that you were doing it. You didn't, like, ping, like, on the way. You didn't ping careful. You just kind of, wow, that Lux has balls. Okay, what's your next move? The sieging mid is going to continue to be decently successful, but ultimately it's not. I don't think it's like the most aggressive thing that you could be doing. So what is your next move? I think you just need to kind of get Baron Vision and Siege. You know, just get Baron Vision. The thing with sieging is it just stalls out the map. You guys have 2 dragons. They only have 1. Elder Dragon comes up after this next dragon. Your team has a really good teamfight engage, and you should base it. So teamfight engage works best around neutral objectives. It doesn't work that well when sieging. It's okay when sieging, but honestly the best effectiveness of a teamfight engage team is just neutral objective control. As long as you get vision on dragon before dragon spawns, then you can engage on them as they come try and get to dragon. So that should be kind of your focus. Which I think is kind of what you're doing. Actually, you have no vision on... Your team has 0 vision on dragon, and that's kind of a problem. And this is what happens when you have 0 vision on dragon. They just got a triple kill for free. And Cho'Gath died with ult. So that's probably the end of the game. Okay, you don't have any business doing anything other than just continuing to gain. So without control of the map, which basically means you need to have all 3 lanes at river or past river to really have control over the map. Without control over the map, your job is just to regain control over the map. Right now, you top lane is pushing mostly because their Graves just doesn't care about it anymore, and I don't know. Another advantage that having control over the map has, specifically in the Rengar matchup, is it prevents Rengar from having like these like weird flank angles because his lanes are pushed and lanes are kind of like free vision. So you can see that Rengar's top lane because he's in a lane. That's a really good time to make a move. I would probably just go for a flash like EQ flash ult engage onto someone if I can, because Rengar is so far away. Now that Rengar's been out of vision for about 12 seconds, you can't do that, because at any moment Rengar can come in and basically murder at least 1 or 2 of your carries. So now you gotta play defensively, stay huddled until you can see Rengar and then make a play if you can see that he's away. But you don't have lane control, so Rengar doesn't have to be in a lane. And that's why lane control is so important in this matchup here. So pressing a lead, another option is lane control. I think in the early game, the best way to... So Rengar's bottom, you need to engage on their team now. Ignore that inhibitor, just kill their team. I already did it for you. You haven't done anything in the last minute. Kill Draven now. You have EQR. You've had 3 opportunities to EQR Draven. Now that Rengar's here, yeah. Your job as the tanky initiator is to be tanky and to initiate, and you didn't do that. And Draven should have died 6 times in that fight because of his bad positioning. Rengar's engage with EQ flash R is literally across the entire screen, and you didn't really do that. Uh-oh. So it looks like the rest of the game didn't show up on op.gg or replay.gg, but hopefully that gives enough information to kind of see what you're going. So, I mean, like, you got a couple of good fights early in this game, specifically around bottom lane. You were getting good fights, and it was causing you to basically, like, you know, get a decent lead in the early game. I don't think you had a good enough control over the enemy jungler, and that is not Jarvan's best strength, but it's still something that any jungler should be able to do, is not really control them, but at least track them, at least know where they're at least have a good idea to be able to predict where they're at. And I don't think you did a good enough job at getting vision in their jungle. Your laners can ward lane stuff, and unless you're building Tracker's Knife, which is an item I really like, I build it on most junglers, but not everyone does, and that's okay. But if the only ward you have is your trinket, don't waste it here. You know, don't waste it here in the tri-brush. Use your trinket to put it here. Use your trinket here. Use your trinket here. Use your trinket here. Use it here. Use it here. Use your trinket in their jungle, because it's your team's only opportunity to actually, you know, like, people can't leave a lane to get vision in their jungle, but vision in their jungle is super important, especially against a Rengar. And you didn't really do that. And I mean, vision is important against every matchup, but especially the assassin matchups. So getting vision in their jungler is what you should do. If you go for Tracker's Knife, then you have the opportunity to defensively ward lanes, like putting a ward in this tri-bush. You can use Tracker's Knife to help ward these. You can use Tracker's Knife to get this or this warded. You can use Tracker's Knife to defensively ward your own jungle. But your trinket, or if you only have trinket, use it in the enemy jungle. So that's kind of rule number 1 for the early game, especially. Another rule number 2 for the early game, efficient pathing, please. There were many instances in this game where you cleared a buff, and I think your best option was to go back to base, but you kind of waited around. Or you cleared a buff, and you went the long way to get to the other buff. Or you cleared a buff, and then you went to gank rather than clear another buff, but the gank was kind of a waste. So that's kind of feedback number 2. Ironically, feedback number 3 is you didn't really gank enough. You know, so I said, like, don't gank when it's a waste, but you also, as a jungler, have to know when to gank. And for Jarvan, levels 1 through 5, when to gank is whenever lane is pushed, kill them, because you're Jarvan and you've got such a ridiculously long range engage. And at level 6, with a Lux, or any other mid laner who doesn't have a dash, your job is to use your ult every single time you can on Lux. And you didn't. I don't think you ever ganked mid at all this game. Even if the lane is frozen, like right here, from here you can EQ flash R. So you can get from this bush to about right here in a matter of 1 second, because EQ gets you right here, flash gets you here, and then ultimate gets you from here to here. Or, you know, more realistically, if Lux is in the mid, you can EQ R without wasting flash, and you can go from here to here in 1 second. And the thing with Lux is she doesn't have a dash, so as long as her flash is not on cooldown, she's stuck in a box, Ahri can land charm, and you win that gank. So if there's an immobile mage, that's why people pick Jarvan, is because of that EQ R. Even if EQ doesn't hit, it doesn't matter, because R did, and now your mid laner can destroy them. So camp a lane, and I don't think he did that enough either. Graves isn't really able, you can't really camp him. Cho'Gath was winning on his own. That's kind of nice. Blitzcrank Draven is decent. They don't really have a lot of defensive tendencies with Blitzcrank Draven, so that's a good lane to gank. It's also a good lane to counter gank, because Blitzcrank has a really offensive kit, so Rengar's going to be down there a lot, so you might want to get vision around bot so you can track Rengar as he goes down there. But in general, be more aggressive with your ganks, especially if you're going to play one of the best ganking champions in the game like Jarvan. So I think that's like your early game overall is just more efficiency, better ganking. That kind of sums it up. For the mid lane, after you got this nice lead, you just need to play to your team's win condition. That's basically how you push a lead, is you decide how do I win this game, and you make steps towards that. Win condition 1 for your team is win team fights, because you've got Jarvan, Cho'Gath, Lucian, who are really good team fighters. So play to that win condition. Engage fights as often as you can, as long as they're favorable in numbers. If it's a 5v5, that's not super favorable, but because you guys have a good lockdown, it might be if you can get onto Draven or Lux. You didn't do that at all in this game. The team fights you guys were winning were a little bit more like long, drawn-out, skirmishy stuff that just you won because, it's kind of a toss-up, and you ended up winning those toss-ups. So use Jarvan's kit to really get into their immobile squishies to force favorable fights, and that's not a win condition that you guys really embraced. Win condition number 2 with this type of team comp isn't really fight them to death, it's just get dragons until you win. And that's a really, really viable option for this comp, especially because you guys have such a good engage to collapse on somebody when they're trying to come get at dragon. And you guys have so much AoE with Cho'Gath and Jarvan ult that it's, you guys want to fight, their team doesn't. I do want to say that the primary reason you guys lost this game was because their Rengar was playing to Rengar's win condition. And Rengar's win condition is spread out the map, push side lanes until they don't need to be pushed, and then just camp in the fog of war until you can pounce on someone and kill them. And he did that pretty much every single time he could. This Rengar was actually really good, maybe even a Smurf. Although he farmed extremely well, which is why I'm possibly considering he's a Smurf. His scoreline is good, but his farm line is fantastic. And so it wasn't really anything that was on your teams like for a fault wise. You didn't execute spectacularly, but really you guys he did his job extremely well, and you guys lost because of that. And so, sometimes playing this, tanky initiator junglers can carry games.